Sorry.
Yes. Thank you, Roger. Okay, sorry. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the technical difficulty. The Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success team is working it out to make sure that does not happen again. We left off with Mr. Carl Perry asking a question on behalf of Pizzazza. Mr. Perry, if you could please ask your question again to refresh Dr. Lamb, and Dr. Lamb, please take it away from there.
Sure. Once again, I was saying no one is held more accountable than school leaders. No one in this district. As a board commissioner, how would you hold the CEO accountable?
Well, I totally agree with you. In most school districts, in all school districts, the administrators, school administrators are held to be, the accountable the most in regards to making sure the safety and the academics is happening in their school. Um, to hold the CEO accountable, it would mean leveraging to show that she has supported, or that whoever the superintendent will be, has supported the administrators and the teachers to make sure that they can do their job competently. So the holding people accountable, it shouldn't necessarily be a punitive piece, it's a preparation piece. So I look at it more in the view of ensuring that she has provided all the supports that are needed by the administration and by the staff and by the teachers to make sure that they can fulfill their job effectively to support the students of Baltimore City. So making sure that she's done what she needs to do to be able to support those administrators and those teachers and that staff that interact with those students every day. And so that maybe would call for making sure that her professional development plans for administrators are in place and being implemented with fidelity, making sure that funds are being allocated accordingly to ensure that that work can get done, but making sure that there is a root cause as it relates to the effectiveness or ineffectiveness as it relates to the entire district.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Mackenzie Allen from the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools. What role do you see charter schools play in the larger city schools portfolio?
Wow, I think charter schools are extremely important. Charter schools remind me of basically innovation labs, right? And so they are a supportive component of the traditional school. And so they are not only hybrid versions, but they are enhancements. They have opportunities to do certain things that traditional schools may not. And so we walk hand in hand with charter schools. Traditional schools and charter schools should move in accordance. They bring so many things to the table as it relates to giving students and parents options. We have to be a part of the charter school piece, and the charter school piece has to be a part of the traditional schools.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Lamb. My name is Shartae Anderson. I represent the Parent and Community Advisory Board. I guess I'll end this off. So my question is, can you describe the role that you think families and communities should play in decision making at the district level?
Absolutely. And so it kind of goes back to the other question I was previously asking about parents and the community, and me referencing that there has to be a great deal of buy-in from the community and parents in regards to the goals and the strategies established by the school division. So if we don't have the support of the community or parents, then we don't really have a strong school division. So it is imperative that they play a vital role in the decision-making process. And so with saying that, though, we have to make sure that they're equipped to make sound decisions. So we have to walk in transparency. We have to make sure that the information that they need to know to make sound decisions is delivered, and is delivered in a variety of ways, and that they are able to give feedback in regards to the things that are happening for the school division. So I think that where there is an understanding and there's transparency, there are good decisions that are always made in the best interest of the students. So their role is vital, their role is strategic, and their role is necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now that we've come to the end of all of our questions, I'll pass it back over to our student panelists. Would you like to ask another question?
No, thank you.
Okay, then over to our other panelists. Would anyone like to ask a second question?
I would. Part of the role of the Board of School Commissioners
is to negotiate with the employees as unions. What do you know about the current issues and or dynamics of the school board and unions that represent city schools employees?
Well, in my previous employment there, I was a part of Piazza. I know that the union and the school board communicate, and they constantly try to work together to make sure that things are getting done and that everyone feels that things are being done equitably and in the good faith for and in good support of the students. So, in regards to the negotiation piece, we're looking to make sure that everybody feels respected, everybody feels heard, and again, that information is transparent so that when decisions are made, no one feels left out or no one feels like they are not being considered. So the negotiation that happens has to be, again, another piece of strategy and another piece of making sure that everyone feels heard and that the message is about making sure that the students are being taken care of, as well as looking at the things fiscally that occur that may affect some of the negotiations. Because many times it's around pay and compensation. But I think many of the times when things are about pay and compensation, it goes even deeper than that. It goes into respect. It goes in, am I being seen? Am I being heard? Am I being valued? So I think it goes a little deeper than that. And so the role of the school board in regards to negotiations is to make sure that they are listening, that they are hearing, and that some of the decisions that are being made are also being considerate of the union and the representatives from the union.
Thanks for your response.
You're welcome.
I would like to ask a follow-up question, if I would. Outside of the financial challenges of the school system, what other challenge do you see the Baltimore City school system facing? What would you think would be the greatest challenge outside of the financial challenges that the system faces?
I think absenteeism. I think absenteeism, as well as again, having some of the parental involvement and buy-in factors to ensure that students are getting the optimum opportunities every day from everyone. Um, and so of course fiscally things are always up and down, depending upon who's in administration, depending upon my birthday is in Christmas Eve, so I tell everybody it depends on how the economy is determines whether I have a good birthday, right? So things happen according to the administrations that are in place and how money flows. But I think one of the challenges that I see just in my past comings and goings is making sure that the students are in school to be able to learn and that the families are feeling that they have a say and that they are a part of the organization to support their children's education.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I
I have
have a follow-up question myself. Christmas Eve, baby, huh? I was
Yes.
the 23rd. Okay, very good. Capricorn, we get slighted around Christmas time, right?
Yep.
Depends on the economy. Like I said, it depends on the economy that year.
That's
Depends
true.
on
That's
how
true.
good it was. Yes.
That's true. Question: name 3 qualities that you would like to see in a new CEO?
I would like to see the new CEO be very strategic, very forward-thinking, very proactive, and being a servant leader. So, and I think the servant leader piece being the at the forefront, because it's not about the person and it's not about the role, it's about the students. And so, although they will hold the highest role in the school district, in the school division, they are the backbone, they are the support of the children of the district. So that servant leadership will allow them to let go of ego. That servant leadership will allow them to make the best decisions academically and social emotionally for the children. And that letting go of that ego and being a servant leader will allow them to recognize mistakes, take ownership of mistakes, and pivot to make it right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a follow-up question. How would you advocate for young people and parents who believe that the school board doesn't listen to them, doesn't value them, or that their voice doesn't matter in how the system operates?
Well, one of the main pieces that you can do to advocate and make sure that the parents are feeling heard and the students are feeling heard is to have numerous types of town halls and keeping those lines of communication open, right? Again, transparency and information, making sure that they know all they need to know and making sure that they have an opportunity to provide that feedback is imperative as well. So there has to be a number of information sessions where surveys are done and various assessments are provided and given to the families so that they can give you that honest feedback and that data disaggregated to be a part of the data-driven decisions that should be made. Because all of this needs to come, I can't go to one side of town and ask certain questions and go to another side of town and ask certain questions and come back and make decisions for everybody the same way. So it's also imperative to know where the people are coming from, what's going on, why their concerns are their concerns, so that again, we can put it in some type of comprehensive piece to make some decisions that will affect positively them and their children. So again, surveys, different types of assessments, making sure they have opportunities to give us information as we give them information to make, again, very good data-driven decisions for the school division.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, sorry, just to give a time check. I know our time was interrupted. So Ms. Allen, this will be the last question for the panel, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Lamb to ask questions. Okay, so please continue with your question.
Okay. What is an example of a policy that you helped change or frame, and what actions or behaviors did you take to create a shift in that policy?
Well, one of the policies that I had shifted in my previous role as a school administrator, as well as a parent in the school division, was to support with special education compliance. So there were policies in place, but the jargon was very loose. Some of the deadlines weren't getting met in regards to federal requirements, the state requirements, in regards to the timeliness of some of the procedures that needed to happen. So I simply put forth or supported a measure that will allow things to be very deliberate in the timing and to make sure that the parents had more than one or two opportunities to meet those meetings and get those things done and make sure that the IEP document was a fluid, powerful document for the children, that they didn't get an IEP in second grade and it basically remained until they were in the fifth, that these documents were reviewed timely and the academic rigor was according to the structure and the support of the student. And so what happened from there, we began to be even more compliant in regards to the state level. We didn't have so many dings in regards to IEPs and not meeting the timetables that were established for the federal laws as well as the state standards. And so just making sure that there was equity in education, and making sure that no population, regardless of special needs or not, that they were not left behind and that their rigor continued to grow with them. And so I was excited to see that. And that was a quick and easy turnaround because there were things that we could track, there were measures in place. And so we quickly made those decisions.
Great, thank you so much. At this time, Dr. Lamb, if you have any questions for the panel, please do ask.
I do, and this is for anyone on the panel. What are you all looking for in particular what are some of the main aspects you would need from a board commissioner?
I think for me, one thing that I'm always looking for is someone who is who's indicated that they will take a lot of their own initiative. I feel like often there are presentations from staff at city schools that the material has been considerably filtered and distilled down and then presented to the school board. And then there's not a lot of space for interpretation or historically we've seen a lot of compliance with the school board. Recently we've seen a lot more action where the school board is going out and asking questions, meeting with people and getting more information. So I'm really looking to continue that and looking for people that are willing to get all of the information themselves.
Absolutely. May I have a couple more responses? Thank you.
As a student, I'm really looking for someone who definitely prioritizes student voice, prioritizes student interest, and also prioritizes communication because that is a big issue I've seen. Okay. So I really do prioritize someone being forward, someone being transparent about what they plan for students, and how they will lead and make sure students in Baltimore City are successful.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Perry, is your hand up?
This is Sheila Billups.
Okay.
Looking for someone that's transparent, as the young lady said. I'm looking for somebody that's trustworthy, someone that has their own heartbeat with education and for education, and not to be able to be wavered or switched around into a group, but stand on your own and believe in what you believe, become independent in what you believe, and fight for that what you believe is right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity. I love Baltimore City. I love Baltimore City Public Schools. And again, just thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to interview with you all. And thank you for the work that you do to ensure that Baltimore City Public Schools are getting all that they need to be successful citizens in the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lamb.
Right. I may go.
Bye.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you for joining us.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so our next candidate is Ms. Shalanda Pinder. Shalanda, can you please let me know if you are online? I can see if I can get her on the phone. Okay, here she is. Okay, Shalanda Pinder.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. The community panel, so on the line are our community panel from the organizations as listed in the email. The community panel will ask one question each for the first round of questions. And after everyone has asked a question, the student representative will be given the preference to ask an additional question. And then the floor will be open to other panelists who would also like to ask additional questions as well. We will turn it over to you then to ask your question. And I will be the timekeeper for today's interviews and will alert you when we are in the final 5 minutes. With that, I would like to turn it over to our student panelists to begin.
Oh, sorry, my voice is gone. Hello, my name is Saffron, and I am here representing the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City. And our question for you is, what unique skill or characteristic would you bring to the current school board?
Thanks. So some unique skills. I'm very well vested in like PowerPoint presentations for the school board. Like I make sure my presentations are friendly to users, have colors and activities. everything inside of it to make it geared in case I'm presenting any information to a group of people. I make sure that I'm able to um, give the information to whatever the audience is by making it fun and interactive and also engaging and informative as well.
Good evening. I am Tasha Marshall with Disability Rights Maryland. How familiar are you with the legal rights of students with disabilities and specifically the rights of students in Maryland?
Yeah. So having a son myself who is visually impaired, also having an IEP, I'm very understanding of like the laws and the rights. Also, I was a part of the parent of Maryland as well, with knowing about some legal stuff that would happen as far as making sure that the child, or especially with my child, have the education that he deserves. He's been at Maryland School for the Blind since he's been 4. He is also 16 years old, so I'm very an advocate for him, seeking stuff for him all the time, like incorporated with doors, learning about DDA and all types of other information that I can assist him with, so that I can make sure that he's getting all of the education that he's needing. Also pulling in some of his family, because he has an uncle who was a principal that also would advocate for him as well, to make sure that his needs for his IEP and everything was also intact. So also knowing the rights of parents is really good. I know that book really well from the IEP, and sometimes I don't even have to read through it because it's like, okay, and he's 16 now. So I'm teaching my son about advocacy and knowing what his rights are too, as not just only for me as a parent, but the child to know what their rights are too. So he also is in contact with his own doors counselor, and I just sent him some emails this week about some programs for the summer. So I'm very, very well rested with like the laws and the rights of parents, students, and the whole body for children with disabilities.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, Brianna Kaufman with Baltimore Family Alliance. Can you share how you see the role of the CEO and the role of the school board? How do they differ? How do they overlap? And how do they interact?
So I really don't know too much about the roles of them, but how they intertwine with each other is how I believe is that they all take a role in the education of each individual inside of the schools and making sure that everyone has what they need to be successful. And I know that each one of those different components actually kind of intertwine with each other, making sure that everything is in place as well, far as the child's background and education wise, where they're placed, all of those things come into part and play with it from how I understand it.
Thank you, Ms. Pinder. Part of the role of the Board of School Commissioners is to negotiate with the employees as unions. What do you know about the current issues and/or dynamics of the school board and unions that represent city schools employees?
So some of the things that I know is that they are advocates for the needs of the children, making sure that everyone is also having their voices heard, and making sure that everything is in place as far as gearing up to making sure that nothing is left untouched.
Thanks for your response.
Yes, Ms. Pender. My name is Sheila Billups. I'm a special education advisor for Baltimore City Schools. My question is, what role do you think systemic racism has played in the school system in Baltimore? How should the district leaders address its legacy?
Um, Also being a, a parent with a child with a disability, I fought to get my son in the Maryland School for the Blind. And I know that part of it, well, I feel as though I can't say that I know. I know that for me, it was a struggle. I had someone from Baltimore City actually tell me the only reason why they put my son through that school at that time was because they were retiring. And I didn't have a liaison. I didn't know too much about putting them or a child with vision impairments or what I can do with that. So I do know that different races and different backgrounds and different placements hold different weight with different characteristics of families. But what I have learned is that if you put yourself out there, and as parents, that we have to advocate a little bit more for our child so that we know that we are able to get the same services. But I do feel like children of color are racially profiled. Even when I wanted to take him out of Baltimore, Maryland School for the Blind, and put him in Baltimore City Schools just to be in a normal setting, I felt as if they just wanted me to throw him in to any school system because they had visually impaired signs on the buildings, and they was new 21st century buildings that it didn't matter about the education. So I can say that I do see it, but I'm hoping and wishing that those things change in the future. But as a parent now, and with the things that I know now, um, I don't allow that profiling to hinder what I can achieve for my son or for any other person as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ms. Pinder. Thanks so much for being here today. My name is Roger Schulman. I'm with the Fund for Educational Excellence. One of the responsibilities of the Board of School Commissioners is to approve, monitor, keep track of the budget, and be able to ensure the financial stability of the school system. We certainly don't expect that many or any of the board candidates have had experience with budgets the size of Baltimore City Public Schools, but can you share with us any experience you have managing a budget with a little bit of detail about what your role was in managing that budget and the size of the budget you were involved with?
So, as you said, I have never managed a budget before, but I do work at Social Security Administration, where I manage a lot of other things as far as money. So, with that being said, I have had to make sure that I am sending out the right payments, doing what we call pay versus payable, and making sure like this person isn't overpaid or they are underpaid, and making sure that we are paying them to the right person, that I have the right banking information, that I'm issuing it to the right, if they have a representative payee, which I'm sure y'all might have heard. So I'm making sure that I'm paying the right person, and also making sure that all the accounts are accurate, and that they haven't changed their banking or information of stuff like that. So I do a lot at Social Security when it comes to issuing out funds and making sure that we aren't issuing too much, too less, just the right amount. I started at the agency in 2014. I've been there for 10 years. Well, roughly 11 years. So I've been doing that for quite some time. Moved up to program analyst, where I also make sure like we send out large overpayments, and large underpayments as well. So we have to make sure like everything is done with paperwork, sending out single copies, giving them detailed notices of the amounts that's been paid to them, why it's paid to them, or why they have to pay this amount back as well. So I'm a little accountant.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll go next. I'm Mackenzie Allen from the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools. What role do you see charter schools play in the larger city schools portfolio?
I actually love charter schools because I feel as though with charter schools, my daughters went to charter schools. It's a little bit on the smaller side, but it also opens up the kids a little bit more to being able to have a little bit more of a outcome of what it's like to be in a smaller range. And I feel as though charter schools can bring to public schools like that unity part of it. And what it's like to be in a unified, smaller space versus something larger. Also, how to maintain friendships and also funding like better relationships with peers and everything of that nature. And I've seen in charter school students is very good with charter schools, and that can be something that public schools can take away is how engaged the parents are in charter schools, and also incorporate that into a Baltimore City public school setting.
Thank you.
I'll go next. Hi, Ms. Pinder. I represent, my name is Shartae Anderson. I represent the Parent Community Advisory Board. My question is, please describe the role that you think families and communities should play in decision making at the district level.
Um, at the district level, I feel as though parents should be a little bit more involved and engaged in their child's learning. Also, engaged in what they want out of the school altogether as a whole, because it also can set the child up for their future as well. I started engaging in my son's future when I knew about his disability at age 4. So now as he began to get older, it hasn't become so of a problematic thing for me to try to find services. So I think the engagement should be very started early. For me, learning about VDA and doors and stuff of that nature was something that I was not familiar with. So with that engagement, parents should try to start early on instead of waiting until 11th, 12th grade year and then trying to find out, okay, what is the suitable school, or even 6th grades going into high school, like what school should fit my child. If they are getting able to go into like those really like poly and stuff of that nature. Okay, does this school fits my child's mindset, or does that fit their characteristics as well? So that we are also making sure that they are in a good placement where they will be successful.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Pinder. Charles Smith of PTA. It's nice to have you. I'm going to come off script a little bit. I think you've answered the question I was going to ask, and so I will ask a different one. When your son has special needs?
Yes.
When you were setting up his curriculum with the school, how helpful do you think the school was when helping you with his curriculum?
So in the beginning part, it was a challenge because they first thought he would be a print student, like he could write French. And it took up until he got to 5th grade where I found that his learning style needed to change. Because they kept saying like he's not getting it. So for me, it was a challenge getting the school to listen to my grievances. But then I had one teacher from the Maryland School for the Blind, MSB, and she's also a visually impaired professional teacher at the School for the Blind, a Braille instructor. And she was like, your son needs to be an audio only student. And then it was at that time, about 5th grade, that his IEP was changed. And from that moment forth is when I started to see him excel more in school. But it was a challenge to try to get everyone on board. However, for me, as being a parent, I would bring in people from the National Federation of the Blind, because we used to do vision walks and everything with them. And I know the Riccobonos, who are really heavy vested in Baltimore City with the National Federation of the Blind, that will come out and speak on the behalf of his IEPs. Like I said, his uncle was a Baltimore City principal who would come and advocate as well. So when I showed my interest in my child's education is when the school kind of also turned gear a little bit. But it was also a challenge for me because Maryland School for the Blind would always show up, but Baltimore City schools would not always be there. So it was almost like, you know, me having a regular meeting with them, but not also hearing what the city could offer him if I did decide to put him into a regular city school setting.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Ms. Pinder. Nice to have you here with us and taking your time with us today. I'm Carl E. Perry, the president of Pizzazza. We represent the administrators in Baltimore City Schools. No one is held to a higher standard of accountability than administrators. No one. However, as a school board member, school board commissioner, how would you hold the CEO accountable?
First, to hold people accountable is to make sure they're following all the rules and the guidelines that's assigned for them. Also, making sure that they are listening to the voices of the parents or listening to the rules of what they are supposed to be governed by. Holding them accountable for me means that they should just always abide by those policies and procedures. At Social Security, we have policies and procedures that govern us. And I feel as though every board and every person should follow those policies and procedures to a T, so that's how I will hold them to those guidelines, is by making sure that they are listening and also looking at the policies and just going by those things.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you to all of our panel members for asking a question. We are nearing the end of our time, but I will send it back over to our student panelists. Do you have a second question?
Oh my God, yes. My second question is oh my gosh, what would you consider your most important leadership experience to date?
Okay, so my most important leadership to date was at Social Security. I instructed classes for 3 years. I love being an instructor, seeing the growth and development of other people, also pushing people to their limits to try a new career. So that's what I'm actually into, is like developing people and of those natures. Another growth and development thing is I just recently finished school and got a second master's degree. So I'm always looking into education. I feel like education is the key to success. So those are some of the things that I like, but I'm really happy and love teaching. I love reaching out to younger kids and adults and making them see that they can push forward with their goals at all times.
To our other panelists, we have time for perhaps one more question before we turn it over to Ms. Pinder to ask her questions. Would anyone else like to ask a follow-up question?
I would, Janelle. Earlier, Ms. Pinder talked about systemic racism playing a role in the school system in Baltimore and how district leaders could address it. Ms. Pinder, I'm wondering, are there any systems that you think that are oppressive to our students and families that you would want to, that you think should be disrupted to make our schools better?
Some things that I think is like so I have a grandson and he was just recently diagnosed with autism, and he got that diagnosis from Kennedy Krieger. And that, as we know, Kennedy Krieger deals with autism. And having those type of diagnosis, sometimes I feel as though it hinders the child a lot of the times because even though we get those diagnoses to help them, it also puts them in a box of this stereotype that everybody have this behavior, or all of them have this type of learning styles, or and it kind of locks them into this box. So what I would like to see is the lessness of putting our kids into this space that everyone is the same and that things can't change. Um, Also labeling our children with every child. I went through this with my own son at Maryland School for the Blind, and he was at a special school. And they was like, well, he can't sit still. He can't do this. And I had to find out that he learns well by moving back and forth. So they had me get him tested for ADHD and all these different tests. And I put him on medication. Then they complained, well, he's sleeping too much. And I'm like, okay, so what do we do from here? Right. So at that point, it was like, instead of trying to find and put our children on medication all the time, finding behavior modifications. I did PRP as well for children at a local mental health institution in Baltimore City. And a lot of our kids need behavior modifications. That don't always mean that we have to put them on medication. It doesn't always mean that we have to see if they have ADHD. It could be underlying other things. And for me, what I had to go through is get my son retested. Now he has autism and it's not ADHD. So then sometimes we take our kids and we get these diagnoses and it mimics something different. But the labeling comes in because you see this child is hyper. Maybe there's a reason for the hypertension. Maybe incorporating some more mental health in the school systems to see what's going on versus just labeling them for whatever reasons. I think that would kind of be more helpful, is to have more like PRP in the school systems that can also help the teachers in the classrooms. Also ABA. I did ABA too. I did a lot of stuff, y'all. So also doing ABA, that helps kids know how to do some behavior modifications so that they don't get labeled or say all kids of color have this behavior issue, or all these type of kids with autism have this behavior issue. And it could be other ways in which we could modify the behavior based upon having different services that's available for them at all times.
Thanks for your response.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Pinder, would you like to ask any questions to our panel?
So my first question would be, what are you guys looking for to fill this board seat? What type of person are you guys looking for? And I'm not sure who the question would go to.
Okay, I'll try to answer this one first from my perspective because I'm a student. So I really do look for someone who really takes into account students' voices and cares about student success overall and tries their best and uses their form of leadership to make sure that students in Baltimore City succeed. And two things that I think go into that is transparency with both the families and students, and open and honest communication.
Thank you. I like that. I think that would probably be like my main question. And then I guess the second question would be is like how involved, like I know we talked about a budget and everything, how involved would the person that you guys pick be involved in like budgeting and planning of that nature, or also with handling someone who may not be following through guidelines?
I'll try to take a cut at this, but other people should chime in. So I want to make sure I'm getting this right. There are 11 members of the Board of School Commissioners and a student commissioner who is also, in certain scenarios, has voting rights. So each member of the Board of School Commissioners plays an important role in improving the school system budget and voting on policy issues, and making really important decisions, negotiating contracts with our labor unions. So there is a chair of the school board, a vice chair, but each member has a vote and each one needs to be involved. I think the way the school board is structured, I think everyone's trying to bring people with different levels of expertise. So someone on the board may know more about finances and budgeting, while someone else may know more about special education or instruction. But ultimately, each board member needs to participate in all aspects of the board's responsibility. But other people should please feel free to chime in and provide another perspective.
Ms. Penn, can you restate the question?
I guess most of my question was about the budgeting, like how involved would the commissioner be involved in the budgeting? And he kind of explained it for me a lot. So that's the only other question that I had.
Okay, Ms. Pinder, we would like to thank you again for joining us this evening. Thank you again for your time and for your interest in the School Board of Commissioners. We thank you for joining.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Ms. Amber Woodruff.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening. My apologies for running a bit late. My name is Janelle Penny. I'm the Chief of Staff of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, and I'll be coordinating the nomination process for candidates to be nominated to the mayor for his consideration. Just to give you a short introduction, the community panel online, and as you had listed in the email sent to you on Monday, the community panel will ask you questions about your experience and your qualifications for the role of a school commissioner. And after they complete their questions, we will turn it over to you to ask your questions as well. This interview will be approximately 30 minutes, so please do keep your answers succinct and thorough. I will be the timekeeper, so I will let everyone know when we're getting to those final few minutes to make sure that you have ample time to ask your questions. And with that, I will turn it over to our student panelists to get us started.
Okay, hello. My name is Saffron, and I am representing the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City. And our question for you is, what unique skill or characteristic would you bring to the current school board?
Great question. Also, just want to say thank you all for taking the time out this evening to speak with me. I definitely appreciate your time. The unique skill that I would bring I bring a few. I truly believe in listening as a core characteristic of how I show up and how I lead. I listen, and I also really pride myself on surveying the landscape and ensuring that in my listening, I am listening to a variety of voices to really anchor in and get diversity of opinion, a wide range of thoughts and perspectives before I go in to make any key decisions. I think in terms of more practical day-to-day professional skills, I've held a wide variety of professional roles in the education space, from being a classroom teacher to the vice president of the PTA at my school to leading a teacher certification program. And all of those different experiences, both in public schools and public charter schools, have just contributed to my worldview and understanding of, what happens when systems work really well, but also, the downside of what happens when they don't. I think another skill or characteristic I bring to this work and any work that I do, aside from any of those titles, is I'm a mother of two very young children. I have a 3.5-year-old and a 18-month-old, and my 3.5-year-old has developmental delays. And so I have spent the past 3.5 years really navigating a variety of systems to support his growth and development. Anyone from medical teams to specialists to folks in early intervention programs in our city and our state. So I think I bring a lot to the table, but I think first and foremost, I'm a listener, and I'm always looking to ensure that I'm hearing a wide variety of voices.
Good evening. My name's Tasha Marshall. I am a paralegal with Disability Rights Maryland. And my question is, how familiar are you with the rights of students with disabilities, and more specifically, students in Maryland?
Mm-hmm. Good question. I'm very familiar with the rights of students with disabilities, not just from my personal experience, but my personal experience with my son led me to enroll in a fellowship on neurodevelopmental disabilities. And so I'm wrapping up the fellowship. I've spent the last year or so engaging in almost 300 hours of coursework and practicum materials at Georgetown University, and learning about laws, learning about policies, researching on my own, writing a capstone with some colleagues around early intervention, and the importance of it and the importance of universal screening. So I'm very familiar. I'm very passionate about disability rights. I think the experience has, at times, because I was a classroom teacher and I was a general ed classroom teacher who, of course, engaged with students who had disabilities or who had IEPs. I think there's grave opportunity to invest heavily in our general education teachers, because when we support our students who are on the margins or who need special accommodations, those accommodations benefit everyone. And so I'm very familiar, and for the things that I don't know, I'm learning more and meeting people to just keep abreast of what the latest research is.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Brianna Kaufman. I'm with Baltimore Family Alliance. Can you share how you see the role of the CEO and the role of the school board? How do they differ? How do they overlap? And how do they interact?
Good question. I believe that the role between the CEO and the school board should be one that is really maintained and kind of maneuvered in with mutual respect. I think that the roles of each entity should be made really clear. And I know that the role of the board is really to provide governance and oversight, whereas the CEO is responsible for the day-to-day operations. That being said, there of course needs to be a lot of partnership between the two entities. I think that because the city is now engaging in the process for selection of a CEO, it's a great time for collaboration to think about what are the skills and the characteristics that are important to us as a city, as family members, as teachers, as students. I see you all have student representatives here, which I think is spot on to, again, hear all of the voices at the table. And so because we're in this unique space now, I think it's important to really just align on, what are we looking for in a CEO, but also to use the time to be clear on the delineation of the roles of each body.
Thank you, Ms. Woodruff. I'm Diamond Tay Brown from the Baltimore Teachers Union. Part of the role of the Board of School Commissioners is to negotiate with employees as unions. What do you know about the current issues and/or dynamics of the school board and unions that represent city schools employees?
So I was not a city schools teacher, but just having lived in the city, I do recall that the union and the board came to an agreement. I think it was late last year on a new contract for teachers to increase pay, to invest some more in their professional development. I appreciate unions. I appreciate that there is a voice and a representative speaking for teachers as professionals. Teachers have some of the hardest jobs that I've ever held, and that I know of. And so I think it is critical to have a unifying body such as a teachers union to really champion the needs of those professionals so that we are treating them with such respect, and that respect is reflected in both their compensation as well as the investment that we have in their professional growth and development.
Good evening, Ms. Woodruff. My name is Sheila Billis. I'm the CCAT chair. CCAT stands for the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee. My question to you tonight is, what role do you think systemic racism has played in the school system in Baltimore, and how should the district leaders address this legacy?
Mm-hmm. I think we are here today with literacy rates where they are because of systemic racism, and I appreciate the question and the candor. I think we're in a time where some people might stray away from calling a spade, and so I appreciate that. But we are without a doubt where we are today in terms of again our literacy rates because of systemic racism. And so I think what City Schools has done a really good job of is taking that into consideration. That, and what is our North Star? How are we going to ensure that our students are whole? So I know that student wholeness is a priority. I know that increasing literacy rates across content areas, embedding literacy into curriculum across content areas. So not just in your reading class or your writing class, but we're going to be doing literacy throughout because that is a core and a critical issue. So I believe that City Schools is taking the cards that we've been dealt via systemic racism and focusing on what matters now. It matters that our students feel safe. It matters that they have the mental health support that they need, that our schools are staffed with the psychologists, the therapists, that our families know where they can go to access a variety of resources to support them and their well-being. And then that we're, focusing on that, the literacy. And I also know there's been an increased focus on leadership and leadership development. So when you have systemic racism, oftentimes you might see a room full of all white males who are making decisions for Black and Brown students in our city. And so with the investment in leadership, I imagine there are opportunities to make leadership positions more accessible to more teachers or staff members who want to advance in their profession and advance in the field. And so I think that those are all opportunities to enhance equity and address the climate that we're in.
Thank you.
Ms. Woodruff, thanks so much for being with us tonight. My name is Roger Schulman. I'm with the Fund for Educational Excellence. One of the responsibilities of the Board of School Commissioners is to oversee, approve, monitor the $1.7 billion budget of the school system. to ensure the financial stability and solvency, frankly, of the school system. Um, I don't think any of us here expect anyone has had experiencing managing a $1.7 billion budget, but we would like to hear about any experiences you've had managing a budget. If you could tell us what your role was in managing that budget, and a little bit of detail about what it was for and the size of the budget, that would be great.
Sure. So my experience working with budget comes from my time when I was teaching in a school and I was a member of the leadership team. So I was a very small team of the principal, the literacy coach, myself, and one other teacher, and then the school psychologist. So a small team, and part of the responsibility was to support the principal in making budget changes. And in the years that I held that position, our student enrollment grew, and so our budget needs changed, and that meant making some really difficult decisions. Even though we increased students, we then had to add some additional FTE roles. But that meant, unfortunately, having to choose between a part-time school psychologist and a foreign language. And while I was not the ultimate decision maker, because that was the role of the school principal, I was there to serve as, provide thought partnership, some critical and strategic thinking about the budget and the numbers and how to move different things that we could or make those suggestions, but then also to be a voice for my colleagues. And another time that comes to mind is while I served as the PTA vice president. And that budget was roughly around maybe $80,000, so nowhere near $1 billion. But again, my role was to provide some guidance to the principal and to the team to think about here's what we know that teachers are saying, and not just from me and my conversations, but ensuring that I was able to pull that data from, we had like an LSAT team and some surveys that went out. And so again, just making my role often was ensuring that the person who was making the decisions had as much information as was readily available for them to make a decision that was equitable.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Allen from the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools. What role do you see charter schools playing in the larger city schools portfolio?
Good question. I think charter schools can play a number of roles. I think charter schools offer choice options for our families. I think if as a community we believe that every child is unique and has their own special interests, then we would rightly believe that there is a school setting for every child and every family. And that could come in the form of a public school, that could come in the form of a public charter school. And so I love that our families have that option. I think another role that charter schools play and can play is just the cross sharing of best practices with our public school counterparts. So if you are doing something unique, something research-based, and you actually have an opportunity to test it out with your students at your charter school, like why not share that information with the public school across the street? So I think it's just a great opportunity all around for our families, for our teachers, professionals to collaborate, and most importantly for our kids to have their best fit schooling environment.
Hello, my name is Shartae Anderson. I represent the Parent and Community Advisory Board. And my question is, can you describe the role you think families and communities should play in decision making at the district level?
Mhm. Good question. I believe families play a critical part in keeping things moving. As a former teacher, I'm a strong believer that, parents know their kids best, right? And so we're really in this together as partners. And therefore, if we're partners at the classroom level, we ought to be partners in some way with families at the district level as well. So I believe greatly in engaging families, finding ways to communicate with them that works for them outside of their families are busy. So outside of their work schedules, making sure that we're touching families that may work evening shift or morning shift or overnight, and finding a way to lift up their voices. But I feel like they should absolutely have a seat and have a voice in informing and influencing decisions.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Woodruff. Thank you for being with us.
Thank
Carl
you.
Smith, I represent PTA. I think you'll appreciate this question. Share your impression of the alignment between the school board and parents and communities. How would you respond when the parents or the community is not in line with the school board?
Yeah, I think that is a really good question. As I started off by saying, I'm really a listener. I think that it's important to listen to people and to listen to families, but not for the sake of we have this listening session on the calendar, right? Like, I think it's important to really be transparent about we are having this listening session to gather ideas from the community. We cannot say that all of these ideas are going to be things that we're going to be able to implement. However, we respect and value your voice and your time, and that's why we're here tonight. I think having that level of transparency with families helps. I know that we are talking about people's children, and so their most prized possessions, and so passion can enter the room. And so I think we have to make space and hear that out and understand that families are passionate about this, because this is we as the city, as the school board, as the school, we hold so much of their child's future in our hands. So I think in times where there is where there is misalignment, being sure to listen, but also be transparent about what we plan to do with that information. We're not always going to be able to do what the families are asking us to do. And if that's the case, we should be upfront about that, and allow them to see kind of how we plan to use the information that they share, and also, inform them what the plan might be and what additional opportunities they might have to come back to the table with us to reevaluate, reassess, and to continue to provide input.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Ms. Woodruff, and thank you for joining us. I have a question. I'm the president of Pizzazza. We represent the administrators of Baltimore City Schools. How would you hold the CEO accountable? Well, yes, that's my question.
Yeah, I think that's all of these are really good questions. I think I've said that a couple times now. So I think holding the CEO accountable, I think it's important to be transparent about that up front. Nobody wants to take on a huge role and not know how they're going to be evaluated. And so this is a time where this group and the city can really think about what are the metrics that we want to use to evaluate the CEO. For me, I think it's important to evaluate the CEO on what the outline priorities are, and how they're making progress towards those goals, how they're keeping track of how they're making progress towards those goals. Everything is not an overnight solution, but we need to have data to inform whether or not we are moving forward or not. So we're thinking about student academic achievement. We're thinking about parent and student satisfaction. We're thinking about teacher and leadership hiring and retention, our recruitment goals. And so those are some of the larger components that I think would be encompassed in some type of evaluation for a CEO.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that ends our first round of questions. We are getting to the end of our time, about 4 to 5 minutes left. So I will ask our student panelists, do you have a second question?
Yes, I have a second question. Okay, so the mayor's designate isn't here, but I'm very curious about how you would respond to this question. So, what was the hardest decision impacting youth that you had to make? Describe how you made the decision and the result of the decision.
So way back when I first started teaching, I was a kindergarten teacher, and I had some students who needed additional support, a lot of additional support. They did not have any diagnosis or, any documented accommodations. But as young children often do, they just needed a little bit of everything, some extra love, some extra time, all of the things that, you would hope a kindergarten teacher would be able to provide. Also in kindergarten, there are field trips. And so there have been some policies in place or conversations around not letting some of the students attend field trips without chaperones. And that was just heartbreaking to me. I was not in the decision-making seat. And so because I did have a little bit of runway around when that would when the field trip would be and kind of what the student needed, I was able to kind of work with the school administration to think about how can we, if this child is unable to have a chaperone, how can we support this student so that they can attend some of the field trips? And so that meant, it meant a lot of things. I worked a lot and relied a lot on the team, not just my teacher, the assistant in our classroom, but the grade level team, because we all traveled together. So we all needed to know what was really going to work for this student outside of the school. How can we practice this as we walk outside of the school to recess? And so a lot went into that, and that was a hard decision. There were, some field trips where the student was not able to attend, but there were, I worked really hard to get some things in place so that the student was able to attend, a few.
Thank you. At this time, Ms. Woodruff, would you like to ask any questions to the panel?
Sure. I am curious to hear from you all as members of the community panel. What are the key characteristics or skills that you are looking for in the next school board appointees?
Oh my gosh. Some key characteristics or skills that I'm looking for is someone who cares about student leadership, student advocacy, someone who cares about the voices of students and uses their power to do what's best for both students and families and their interests. And this requires someone who's transparent, straightforward, and has excellent communication skills. And that's really what I look forward to.
Ms. Woodruff, I'm really looking forward to someone that is an avid reader and will seek information on their own and be prepared for decision making and not rely on a district staff to give you the information necessary for those decisions. For example, one of the major jobs of the school board is to negotiate with unions. And if that's the case, I think it's important that you read our contracts, that you read the proposals that we present to the school board, which may seem very simple and common sense, but if you don't know, our school board has abdicated responsibility of negotiating our contracts to the CEO. And so they don't get firsthand information. And it becomes very cumbersome for union leaders to try to make sure every school board member is informed. So it would be, so I'm just, if you were to get on the school board, I'm giving you that pro tip in advance.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I would like to follow up on Demonte's too. From the community perspective, I would like someone who's going to question the board when they're closing elementary schools in the neighborhoods. They're always talking about cost efficiency and they haven't maintained them, but a lot of times these small elementary schools are the very heart of the communities. And when you close them, you've got that heart for a lot of the smaller communities within the city. And we're seeing it all over the place. And they're consolidating into larger and larger schools. They're making the kids move further and further away from their neighborhoods. On the elementary side, it's very difficult for the families.
Yes.
Well, this brings us to the end of our interview time. Ms. Woodruff, I want to thank you again for giving us your time this evening and participating in this interview. We hope that you have a good rest of your evening.
Awesome. Thank you all and have a good night.
Thank you. All right, our next candidate is now on the line, Mr. Melvin Chisholm. Are you on?
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Janelle Penny, and I am the Chief of Staff of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success. I'll be coordinating this interview process and the nomination process for the mayor's consideration. We want to thank you again for your interest in joining the Board of School Commissioners. The community panel will ask you questions about your experience and your qualifications for the role of a school commissioner. And after they complete their questions, we'll turn the floor over to you to ask a question as well. This interview will be about 30 minutes, so please be sure to keep your answers succinct yet thorough. And I will also be the timekeeper, and I will let the group know when we are nearing the end of our time. So with that, I will turn it over to our student panelists to get us started.
Hello, my name is Saffron, and I am here representing the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City. So our question for you is, what unique skill or characteristic would you bring to the current school board?
What characteristic would I bring to the school board? For one, just being a champion of equality when it comes to the experience and the resources given in Baltimore City. I'm sorry. Can you phrase the question again? Can you say the question again? I'm sorry.
Our question was, what unique skill or characteristic would you bring to the current school board?
Okay. Yeah. So as I said, just being a champion for the students and also the families, ensuring that the policies of Baltimore City is spread out from and it's just fair equality with the students. Sorry. That's the answer.
Good evening, Mr. Chisholm. This is Tasha Marshall with Disability Rights Maryland. And my question is, how familiar are you with the rights of students with disabilities, and specifically students with disabilities in the state of Maryland?
Okay. Well, I'm not 100% familiar with all of the rights, but I do know that for the ones that I do know, I would advocate for fully inclusive classrooms to ensure compliance and also proactive supporters and for the students that have the disabilities.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brianna Kaufman. I'm with Baltimore Family Alliance. Can you share how you see the role of the CEO and the role of the school board? How do they differ? How do they overlap? And how do they interact?
How do the CEO from the board interact with who?
With each other.
I'm not too familiar.
Okay, do you want to just talk about what you know of the current school board?
Well, what I do know, let's see. So I'm a parent and business owner in Baltimore City, and I've lived. I'm a Baltimore native and have been my entire life. So what I bring as far as to the table is just the experience and also the commitment with dealing with the students and the families and also the educators. So I'm not really 100% sure of how it goes on the board, but I'm open to trying to figure it out now.
Why did you apply? Why do you want to be on the board?
To just to help strengthen and facilitate between the families and the school system. Just like I said, to ensure the policies that are inclusive and advocate that more strategies can improve a better academic outcome in a workforce readiness, along with the emotional wellness of every child. So, I have nieces, nephews, and my children as well that's enrolled in the Baltimore school system, and I'm on the volunteer board for 4 different schools right now, and the assistance from the principals to the school staff and administrators it's been positive. So I felt the need to apply.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Chisholm. I'm Diamond Tate Brown from the Baltimore Teachers Union. Part of the role of the Board of School Commissioners is to negotiate with the employees as unions. What do you know about the current issues or dynamics of the school board and unions that represent city schools employees?
I'm not too familiar with it.
Thank you for your response.
Good evening, Mr. Chisholm.
Good
My
evening.
name is Sheila Billups. I'm the Special Education Citizens Advisory Chairperson. My question to you tonight is, what role do you think systemic racism has played in the school system in Baltimore? How should the district leaders address its legacy?
Racism and the legacy of the school board. How can they improve? That's a big question. Well, I don't want to get too. I don't. Let me see. Say that question one more time.
What role do you think systemic racism has played in the school system in Baltimore? And how should the district leaders address its legacy?
Well, I believe that it plays a big role because we are in Baltimore City, and Baltimore City alone has a name for being, just infamous with the crime rate, especially among the youth. And because of that, it funnels right into the school system. So outside of school, young Black people are looked at as criminals off the rip. If they're somewhere just being children, well, they could be looked at as, oh, this group of individuals are criminals. So same in the school, that it's like it's a system. It's systematic on how. That's a broad question. I don't want to be. I think it plays a big role, and I believe that every child should be fair. It should be fair amongst the board, whether the child is Black or white, but that hasn't been.
So how do you think that district leaders should attack this legacy? What should we do about it? How can we make it better?
I believe more programs that allow one-on-one or one-on-one and group sessions with the students in Baltimore City to understand that it's not just it's an emotional thing as well, because it's a lot of misunderstanding between the culture of Black individuals, Black students, and the school system. I believe that some of the teachers and staff may not be as equipped to understand the emotions and the mindset of the children today, and they may rule them as just being unruly when in reality they just need someone to talk to, maybe to express themselves without being categorized as one thing, but in reality, it's just a child that need love and some attention. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for being too broad.
Thank you.
Mr. Chisholm, thanks so much for being with us today. Appreciate the time. One of the responsibilities of the Board of School Commissioners is to approve, oversee, sort of monitor the $1.7 billion budget of the school system. Now, I don't think any of us here expect that our candidates have had experience working with a $1.7 billion budget, but can you share with us what, if any, experiences you have had managing a budget, and if you could describe sort of what your responsibilities were with that budget and give us some sense of the size of the budget you worked with, that would be great.
Okay, well, I haven't worked with an enormous budget like the billions of dollars that Baltimore City or the state of Maryland get for child education. But as far as my personal experience, you're asking me how should it be spent, or what's my expertise?
No, just what's your experience working with a budget? So if you work for a business or one of your businesses has a budget, how do you interact with that? If you've worked with other schools and helped with their budgets, any experience you have sort of working with a budget. And if you don't, that's okay too. Not a problem.
Okay, well, that's fine. Well, like I say, so I've been a representative for a transportation business, Diane Transportation in Baltimore City. That business has been running for maybe 25 years now, 25 to 30 years now. And it's a family business. So when it comes to just maximizing, just making sure everything is, like I said, it's not a big budget. It's really small. So I don't have a bunch of experience on how to run that kind of budget, but just ensuring that the productivity of the business continue to run smoothly is, so yeah. So
I appreciate that. Small family businesses are hard work, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie from the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools. What role do you see public charter schools play in the larger portfolio of schools in the city?
Charter schools in the city, I don't know too many, but I used to attend a charter school way back when, but it was shut down. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Baltimore Civitas. It was a middle school and high school. I was one of the students that started at the school, and it was a great school when it lasted. But as far as your question goes, you say, well, what do I see in Baltimore City as far as the charter schools? Was that your question?
What role so Baltimore City has a lot of different schools in the portfolio. There are charter schools, contract schools, criteria-based schools like Poly, all different kinds of schools. So how do you see all of these different types of schools fitting into the portfolio of schools, and how Baltimore City is a school choice district?
I think it should be more charter schools, but I think the same resources that's in a charter school should be in the public schools as well.
How you doing, Mr. Chisholm? My name is Shartae Anderson, and I represent the Parent and Community Advisory Board. And my question is, can you describe the role that you think families and communities should play in the decision making that happens at the district level?
Well, I think parents deserve a real-time, accessible communication with what's going on in the school system, whether that's from changes in the changes in the schedule to changes in transportation or even funding. I believe I believe that the parents deserve to be able to access and have access to uh, communication on what's happening with the board. I believe I answered your question. If I didn't, could you rephrase it? Could you rephrase it again? I'm sorry if I didn't answer it.
No, I got it. If you wanted to add more, it was just around what role do you think families and communities should play in decision making?
Okay, so I believe I answered it.
Yeah.
I believe I answered. So yeah, because again, these schools are in the community. So when it comes to the schools in the community, the shape and the outcome of the decisions that's being made should the community should have an input. So you know, it's kind of it'd be wrong to just push for this agenda or push for that agenda, but never include the people that this agenda is supposed to be for. So that's what I believe.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chisholm. It's nice to have you here.
Good evening.
Can you share your impression of the alignment between the school board and parents in the community, and how you'd respond when parents in the community are not in alignment?
Can I explain how I see the board when it comes to the families? Mr. Smith, Charles Smith, one more time. I'm so sorry. Say it again.
Share your impression of the alignment between the school board and the parents and community. How would they work together? How are they supposed to communicate with one another? And how would you respond when the parents or the community are not in alignment with the school board?
Well, lately, I would say the school board has been doing a good job when it comes to communicating with the families, especially when okay, like for example, in Henderson Hopkins on Ashland Avenue. So I'm an advocate there for some students as well. And when it comes to making bully reports, I would say that the school board made it easy to file these reports. Because that's a form of communication, letting the school board know what's going on inside of the schools. And how do I think the school board could do better? I believe you asked. The school board did a good job, I think. Maybe the response times. I know the investigation, it sometimes can go from 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours to respond back to the parent or the school, the actual school. So I think the school board is doing okay in that regard. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chisholm.
Good evening.
Thanks for joining us this evening, too. I have a quick question for you. As a school board commissioner, how would you hold the CEO accountable?
Okay. On the school board, well, whatever the school board agrees to, along with the CEO, if we agree to the policy being X, Y, and Z, and funding is supposed to be, if the CEO falls short, then I think that the commission should come together to report that, or let the CEO know that this wasn't a plan. Maybe just to make sure we all still on the same track to ensure the better education and safety of the students in Baltimore City, and not just the students, but just outside of school as well. Because schools is beyond the students is outside of the school too. So if the CEO is not fulfilling his obligations, and I think that, I believe that either the commission, I'm not sure how, I'm not familiar with how the chain of command is with the commission board, but however the chain of commission is, the chain of command is, I believe that it should be followed and to reach the CEO, and if the CEO agrees, then it's a better day, right? If the CEO agrees. I'm not sure how much rank or how much power the CEO would have when it comes to the commission, but I would hope that the commission have a strong voice with policies that's not being followed the way the policy was written.
Yeah, the CEO is supposed to report to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, then yes, my answer is the same. If the CEO doesn't fulfill what the commission has already agreed to, then the commission should report back and let the CEO know exactly what the plan was, and maybe remind him or give him a breakdown of what the plan is supposed to be.
Thank you.
Did I answer that well? I think I did. I don't know. Hope that was clear.
No, I understood. Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. So that we now have gone through all panel members to ask a question. I'll take it back to our student panelists. Would you like to ask a second question?
Yes, I would like to ask a second question. So my second question is, tell us why you believe you would be a good school commissioner. Please include in your answer if there is a particular issue that motivates you to serve.
Well, I believe I can bring a fresh and solution-focused idea and mindset to the board, and again, just offering creative, practical, and learn how to be more or take advice on how to be budget conscious when it comes to these ideas to achieve it. So I believe I can bring solutions and not just critiques, and but that are grounded in both data and community voice, rather as in boosting the attendance in the schools or supporting new teacher pipelines and launching new after-school programs that align with the workforce needs of the community.
Okay, we have about 7 minutes left. Would any other panelists like to ask a second question?
Yeah, I'll ask one. Mr. Chisholm, we have an influx of multilingual families coming into our district, speaking all different types of languages. I'm wondering if you know the current resources that city schools provide to those families, and if so, how do you think we could improve on those supports? And if not, if you could just speak in general to what supports you believe multilingual families deserve.
Well, I believe multi-language families, they are entitled to the same education as the native tongue of Baltimore, which is English. Just bridging that gap again, facilitating between the families, the school, and the students is very important, because a strong community is what and a strong reputation is important. So I'm not familiar with all the languages that are, or the resources for these families in Baltimore City. I know, so we transport to Patterson Park, and I know that at that school, Spanish is it's like the second language over there. So it's a lot of Spanish speaking families, and from what I see, it's a lot of Spanish bilingual staff in the buildings as well. So I'm not 100% sure about all the different languages that's in the school system and the resources for them as well. But I do believe that they should have the same amount of the same voice and the same amount of education as English speaking students that's in Baltimore City as well. No child should be left behind.
Thanks for your response.
Okay, Mr. Chisholm, we'll now hand it over to you. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask the panel?
Yes, I have one written down. I'm gonna read this one. What is the most important quality that you hope to see in the next commission or nominee, and how can this role better support the organization or what the commission currently have and with the district? Was that supposed to be directed to a specific person or?
No, you can make it open, and any of our panelists, please
Okay.
respond with your perspective.
Okay.
This is Sheila Billups. I'll respond first if no one don't mind.
Good evening.
We're looking for honesty, transparency, trustworthiness, and just a good heart, and more business minded when it comes to the policies, but also have a heart for the students and for the families, and to communicate with them so that they will feel heard and believed.
Okay. Well, when it comes to the communication so far, I don't know if anybody have any statistics or stats, but how have the families and the schools been responding to the communication? Are the families, in y'all opinion, are the parents are the parents feeling heard, or are they feeling left out when it comes to decision making?
Well, from the PTA's perspective, many times the parents do feel they've been left out or they're not being listened to from the school board.
Okay. How did the school board handle those kind of emotions from the community? Do you just come together and figure out how can be better accommodate these families, or is it moments like this where you try to nominate someone new, nominate more commissioners on the board to bring fresh ideas? Which one is it? How do you handle those complaints?
We hope that we forward people that will be good communicators.
Okay. I don't really have too many more questions. Miss Billups, you pretty much cleared it for me, and that's, I appreciate it, both of you as well. You, Mrs. Smith, I appreciate both answers, especially when it comes to transparency and honesty, because that's not a quality that is frequently seen in the community, as especially when someone is trying to involve themselves in the school system. Period. So that's very important. And as a parent, that's what I would want as well: transparency and honesty. So I don't have any more questions.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful person to meet tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Billups. Likewise, feelings mutual.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chisholm, for joining us this evening. We hope you have a good rest of your night.
Thank you. Do the same.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, and our last candidate for this evening's interviews is in the waiting room, so I'm going to go ahead and let her in now. Hi, Dr. Wortham.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wortham, for joining us this evening.
Great.
We are very glad to have you on. So this evening, apologies, I've lost my place. So good evening, and thank you again for joining us this evening, as well as for your interest in joining the School Board of Commissioners. The community panel will ask you questions about your experience and qualifications for the role of a school commissioner. And then after they complete their questions, we'll turn the floor over to you to ask your questions as well. This interview will be 30 minutes, so please be sure to keep your answers succinct and thorough. With that, I'll turn it over to our student panelists to kick us off.
Oh my God. Hello, my name is Saffron, and I am here representing the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City. So our question for you is, what unique skill or characteristic would you bring to the current school board?
Wow, thank you so very much. And thank you for that being the very best and the very first question, because As a former superintendent, I was nicknamed as the student's superintendent. And I tremendously believe in student voice. When I served here in Baltimore City Public Schools for 36 years, yay, that was a pause for applause. I served with the students in mind. And I came up with the saying, is it good for kids? And if it's not good for kids, then it's not good for anyone. Then we're not going to do it. So I believe in making sure that our students understand, that they know that they are heard, that they are seen, and that their voice is right there in the centerfold. I want to make sure that our students are healthy, safe, supported, engaged, and challenged. Healthy, meaning mentally, physically, spiritually, safe from all hurt, harm, danger, negative thinking. Supported, meaning that whatever you need, what access you need to learn and to achieve is there for you. And engaged, how do we take you higher and to the next level? So that's what I bring. I bring a historical knowledge of Baltimore City Public Schools, and as well as national reputation for being an educational leader with a focus on young people. Thank you for that question.
Good evening, Dr. Wortham. Tasha Marshall, paralegal with Disability Rights Maryland. How familiar are you with the rights of students with disabilities, and specifically students with disabilities in the state of Maryland?
Yeah, it's amazing. My claim to fame, you heard me say to the students at the first question that I serve on the national level as far as being superintendent of the year, et cetera. My birthing was right here in Baltimore City Public Schools. I know people across the country are so tired of me saying, well, the way we did it in Baltimore City schools. Do you remember when we were in the 20-year consent decree? Yes, we exited that consent decree. I feel like saying hallelujah, y'all. We exited that consent decree before I retired. And one of the strategies that we used, and I've taken it across the country, is through professional development, making sure that people are knowledgeable about the rules, the regulations, the policies and procedures, making sure that we close the gap actually between general ed and special education. I remember working so well with Linda Brown. I remember, I'm going to call names that were probably before you all were born, but I remember working so well with all departments. And that's the piece, excuse me, not working in isolation, working together so that our students with special needs have access to more than what's in their IEP.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Brianna Kaufman. I'm with Baltimore Family Alliance. And my question is, can you share how you see the role of the CEO and the role of the school board? How do they differ? How do they overlap? And how do they interact?
This is so amazing because as a superintendent for 16 years, that is the the question that you always, that's your lifeline, the relationship between the superintendent and the Board of Education. Let me go from the superintendent side. The superintendent, the role is the care and feeding of the board to make sure the board can articulate what they need to know and be able to do in order to make those decisions. The board, their responsibility is to hire a superintendent that can carry out and execute the mission and vision of the district. I have served for years working with the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, doing professional development in that state for school board members. I just did a keynote for the New York State School Boards Association. I have attended almost every national school board association meeting since 2008. So I am well versed. The book, Becoming a Better Board Member, I love that book. And in every district where I've served, and it's 5 districts, I have made sure that everyone masters that book. On one side of the book, it talks about the role of the superintendent, and the other side, it talks about the role of the board. And the beautiful part is the connection between the superintendent and the board, working simultaneously, working in unison for the good of our students and our community. A healthy board, a healthy superintendent working together means a healthy community. I wrote a book that was published in January of 2024 called Setting the Atmosphere. It ranked as #1 on Amazon's hot new releases. I was so shocked. I took a screenshot when I went on Amazon to see how the book was doing and to know that it was #1. Setting the atmosphere. It means that the board and the superintendent set the atmosphere for the district so that when they work in concert together, the district can move forward. That is one of the key components to student achievement, to school improvement, is harmony on high. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wortham. Part of the role of the Board of School Commissioners is to negotiate with the employees as unions. What do you know about the current issues and/or dynamics of the school board and unions that represent city schools employees?
Yeah, I fondly remember even serving and working for the BTU. You don't remember the telephone teacher component when we did the homework hotline, etc. The relationship between the Baltimore City Public Schools and the teachers union is key. Always salary. Always what are our working conditions? Always what is it that we can do to work in concert and make sure that we adhere and work towards our contract. Specifically, any discord between the union and the board, I am not aware of, but I can tell you this, that when there is discord and when there isn't harmony, it means that there has been a lack of communication and collaboration. My boards always met with the leaders of the unions once a month, the superintendent and the boards met with the leaders once a month. In my last district, we had 14 unions. However, we made the time to make sure that we met with them to make sure that there wasn't something that we would hear about on North Avenue before we would have a chance to resolve it.
Thank you for your response.
Mhm.
Good afternoon, Dr. Wortham. My name is Sheila Billups. I'm the chairperson for the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee. My question to you tonight is, what role do you think systemic racism has played in the school system in Baltimore? And how should the district leaders address its legacy?
Wow. Systemic racism comes in many forms, specifically to Baltimore City Public Schools. If within the time span that I exited, within any district, that's why we came up with, or why we address and adhere to the word equity, making sure that everyone has access and not some have it and some don't. I believe that at the time I served as the principal of City College High School, and we wanted to make sure that everyone had access to appropriate curriculum. Sometimes we can make statements to students and make them feel that they are less than. But we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that our conversation is not tearing people down or making people of whatever ethnicity feel like they're not good enough. That hinders success. I think Baltimore City Public Schools is prime for continuous moving forward and working together. When they sent me the letter for this meeting, I saw representation across. And with those entities coming together, the teachers union, special education, then racism has to be at a minimum or non-existent. Our behaviors, a check and balance, must check each other so that our children are whole. You heard me say mentally, physically, and spiritually. That's the goal, regardless of where we serve. Excuse me.
Thank you so much for your answer.
Hi, Dr. Wortham. It's Roger Schulman from the Fund for Educational Excellence. It's been a minute. It's been a minute, but it's really nice to see you. Thanks for being here today. As you know, Baltimore City Public Schools has a very large budget. It's currently about $1.7 billion right now. And part of the role and responsibility of the Board of School Commissioners is to approve the budget, to monitor sort of spending against the budget, to ensure the financial stability and solvency of the school system. You've talked about your many different roles. I know you've been a superintendent, but if you can share a little bit with us about the role you've played with budgets, the sort of size of budgets you've worked with, and again, yeah, sort of how you interacted with the budget. I'd appreciate it. We'd all appreciate it.
So when I left Baltimore City Public Schools, 250 schools at that time, with 85,000 students at that time. And I went across the Maryland line to Pennsylvania, and there were 1,200 students. And everyone in Baltimore City laughed so hard. Are you going to show up every day? You could just, stay home and text. Not. So it doesn't matter the amount What matters, are you aligning the budget to the needs of the students? I checked in and I listened to the one of the budget meetings the other day, and I had to give the board and the chiefs a round of applause. The questions that were asked and the answers that were given were on point. The largest budget that I have handled was with 30,000 students and $250 million. When I went to that district, they were $16 million in deficit. And when I left, they had $6 million in their fund balance. With the budget, it's ongoing. I'll give you an example. We would send letters to the entire members in the entire district in October of every year, asking them for the next school year, please identify your needs. Every classroom teacher, every clerical, any person who received a paycheck in that particular district. In December, they would meet, or by December, they would meet with the leadership team and the principal or the central office head of that district, and they would talk about it. In January, I and my cabinet selected board members would meet with them in January. So by the time we put that final budget together, every child, every staff member had weighed in and collaboration. I worked in a district where the budget was never passed by the community. But for me, because of the process, we made 24 presentations to the community, going to the libraries, going to the schools, so that everyone, whether they had a child in the district or not, they could articulate line by line the budget. And with that, you don't have the end result of people being dissatisfied, because you come together and you spend the year articulating. That's one of the greatest things, I think, the work that I've done, and I've worked with my board staff, one of the greatest things, because once that budget is settled and you have forecast and you have done feasibility studies and you've done projections for enrollment, etc., that's it. It's an amen for that school year. And so that's why we continue. When we look at the curriculum, what are the materials and supplies, the professional development, any partners, resources, external, what are the gaps? And what's unique about my experience is that in every district where I've served since leaving Baltimore, we've always had a state monitor. So I've always had to report to the Secretary of Education or the Commissioner of Education or the Nancy Grasmicks of the world, who was in charge when I was in Baltimore City. And so we've had that additional oversight. Never have we ever had an issue where the funds were there was a discrepancy. That's the single, I say the board president is the chief financial officer. The board president must be clear, as well as members of the board. And that's what I saw with the board members who participated the other day in the one of the budget committee meetings. I was so happy to hear the voice of all of the commissioners who participated, so that they can have more than a working knowledge. It was kudos, hats off to the Board of School Commissioners and the teams for working together.
Thank you so much.
When I thought about you, Roger Shulman, I thought about Bonnie Copeland. I was going to say that.
I get that a lot. It's really nice to see you. Thanks for being
here. It's nice to be here.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Allen from the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools.
Hey.
Hi. What role do you see charter schools play in the city schools portfolio of schools?
Yeah, that's so amazing. I am actually serving as an executive coach to a superintendent who served as a charter school principal here in Baltimore City. It's amazing. The world is very small. With charter schools, everyone has a choice. You have options. And so if parents opt to send their students to a charter school, that is their choice. Here's the bottom line, that everyone has to be accountable for excellence. Everyone must be accountable for student achievement. Everyone. So whether it's charter or not, everyone has an accountability for our young people. So it's choice.
Hello, my name is Shartae Anderson. I am the Parent and Community Advisory Board representative. Thank you for being here today. And my question to you is, can you describe the role that families and communities should play in decision making at the district level?
I remember when I was here in Baltimore City, one of the jobs that I wanted to have was a parent liaison, because I thought that the parent liaison was the key to the success in Baltimore City schools or in the schooling period. Parents must be partners with everything that happens in the schools. As a board member, I saw my boards rally with the community. It was their job to make sure that the parents were at the table. I remember resurrecting the PTA in one district that was not in order. I don't know why I want to get hoarse right now, but it's okay. And so I believe so wholeheartedly in PCAP, the PTA, et cetera, that I am a life member for the PTA. And I think that when you hear, you can't lead as a board, as a CEO, superintendent, unless you can listen. And when you listen to the community, as a superintendent, and my board would always sit in with me if they were available to on the superintendent's community circle. And that community circle was made up of at least one parent or two, depending on the size of the district, to meet with me without an agenda. We want to hear, we want to know. I need to hear. And as a board member, we need to hear. We even had the clergy circle, because wherever people worship, we need to make sure that we have those community members who can accurately articulate what's happening in the city schools. It is vital. The health of the community dictates the health of the school system. So it is important that we come together. I remember Congressman Elijah Cummings used to talk to me so much about the importance of being involved in the community. He would come over to Samuel Coleridge Taylor Elementary School when I served as principal there, and it was the lowest performing elementary school, not in Baltimore City schools, but in the state of Maryland. And it was through the community involvement, people coming together, that we erased that in 2 years. And we became America's best elementary school for significant improvement through community involvement. So I am really excited and grateful for the window of opportunity that I had in Baltimore City to see the merit and worth of bringing parents, making parents a part of the process, so that as I moved on in my career, it was absolutely positively. One of the things that I've done as a result of that is to implement Karen Mapp's work on parent involvement, and to make sure that we had a parent liaison in every school, so that parents knew that there was someone, and preferably someone who lived in the community of the school. There was someone that they could reach out to if they couldn't get voice anywhere else. That is key.
Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Wortham. It's very nice to have you this evening.
Thank you.
Charles Smith from PTA.
Yeah, well, I just talked about you.
I know, and I'm going to follow up on that. Can you share your impression on the alignment between the school board and the parents and the communities? How would you respond when the parents or the community is not aligned with the school board?
See, now you're going to take me back to the late Tim Tootin. Tim Tootin used to say to me all the time, when I was on North Avenue, he would come to do a story about the district. Sometimes it might not have been a good story. Sometimes it was a good story. But he would always say, Doc, stay ahead of the story. Stay ahead of the story. And then he would share a scripture. But he would say, stay ahead of the story, meaning that before something is newsworthy, communicate, collaborate, problem solve, come together before it explodes. And with that information, I did that here in Baltimore City schools in my very classroom. I remember being awarded the Elementary Teacher of the Year and for Baltimore City schools, and the number of parents that came out. Why? Because we communicated. So with the board, when there is an issue, good Lord, I owe Baltimore City so much. I remember sitting live, and of course this was before COVID. I remember being in the board meetings, and if a parent came with a complaint, and I was area academic officer at this time, then whatever superintendent would say, you didn't do your homework. You didn't meet with that person. Why is this person coming? Because we should have settled that at the lowest level of where it happened. So that's always been my goal. Hear the parents, hear the students, hear the staff members, where it is, so that if the board has to make a decision, then everyone knows what that decision is going to be, because we've clearly heard from all voices. That is important. In the book, Failure is Not an Option, I wrote a chapter, page 89, on collaboration. The key, the success is collaboration. It takes time, yes, but we always know that the answer is in the room. When the board, and Lord knows, I've been in many situations, and the board says, all right, together, what are we going to do? How do we resolve it? Then we go into executive session and talk about how did we get here? What steps did we miss? Then what can we do to make it work? It is about collaboration. It's about communication, articulation, working this thing together. Because the bottom line is, as I said to the student at the beginning, is it good for kids? Even if it's about an adult matter, adults are with children. Is it good for kids? And let's stay ahead of the story.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I just want to alert everyone that we are at our 30-minute time. So Mr. Perry, please ask the final question, and then we are going to hand it over to Dr. Wortham to ask her question to the panel.
Fantastic. Good evening, Dr. Wortham. It's been
Good
quite some
evening.
time, and it's great to see you again. Truly
You
great.
know it is. I wasn't going to tell anybody, but you know it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. My question is, now I know from your previous seats that you've been held accountable. I'm the president of Pizzazza, but how do you as a board commissioner hold the CEO accountable?
Absolutely. I felt it being a former superintendent, but I've always also felt it because I've had to train school boards across the country to hold, and your question was, to repeat it, for the board to hold the CEO accountable.
Yes.
It's through the strategic plan. The strategic plan has goals, objectives, it has pillars, and those goals and objectives are with the CEO as well. That accountability, the CEO then works with cabinet and with principals and staff to make sure there is one sound. There's one sound that we are moving together collaboratively. So when the CEO is evaluated, everyone in the community, in the city, they know those goals as well. And so, because they're all components that everyone in the district is working towards, I can't be any greater than my staff. The staff members must work together. So the goals, and you're making me reflect, the goals are a part of, it's not about Deborah Wortham, superintendent. It's about the district making these goals work together. That is absolutely the bottom line. And for years, I've worked with a company called Super Eval. And Super Eval, I don't know if you all use that through board docs to evaluate the CEO, but it gives an opportunity for the CEO to input documentation to provide evidence of how the district, he, she, how they're leading the district to meet those goals. And then the board has an opportunity to go in and to support that or offer questions, etc. And so that's one of the mechanisms where it's not an I gotcha, but it is a coming together communication, seeing the evidence and the growth of this accountability partnership that you would have between the board and the superintendent. There is something that a position that I'm working in now as an executive coach. Boards hire me to serve as an executive coach, to coach superintendents so that they can get into the heart and mind of every board member. And board members can see the relationship between the superintendent. So I'll end on this because we started with this. It's got to be harmony on high. It's got to be a movement where together we make sure there is success. And if there's a disconnect, then we have documentation for that as well. But if there is an alignment, then you're going to see it showing up in pre-kindergarten through grade 12. If there's an alignment, you're going to see it in the graduation rate. There has to be an alignment. In one of my districts, when I got there, they were in state takeover for 12 years. Working with the board, we were able in 2 years to come out of school improvement. The graduation rate went from 68% to 86%. You want to know how I learned to do that? Being principal of City College High School. Exactly. And so there is a process between the board and superintendent. One of the most highly attended sessions at the National School Board Conference is the session on board superintendent, board CEO relationships, because it just doesn't happen. You have to work at it, and you have to make sure that there is an alignment, that there is a foresight and a process in order to have the absolute best product, which is our young people.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
Okay, and just to end us off, Dr. Wortham, if you would like to ask one question to the board, and I will have up to 2 panel members to respond. So please, over to you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so very much. I don't have a question, believe it or not. And that is me satisfying, because when I interview people, I don't like feeling like I'm being interviewed. So I'm not going to do that to you all today. But I will say this. It is a complete honor and privilege to sit before you this evening and to even discuss the sheer notion of the possibility of me being a commissioner for a district where I served for 36 years. I think I held every position as possible in this district. And I remember Dr. Ambre saying to me, when I worked in central office as director of efficacy, you all remember that? And I did my dissertation on efficacy. I did. I'm still living it every day, because it's nothing more than joy and bringing joy to the workplace. And he said, I need you to go and get your doctorate, and I need you to go and get a set of golf clubs. Now, I said, why those 2? He said, the doctorate you need, because that's going to get you past clerical staff when you need to meet someone. And you need golf clubs because all deals are brokered on the golf course. I did get golf clubs. They put me in special ed golf, but I did get golf clubs. I look cute on the golf course, but I don't play that well. So I will say to you that in 2020, when we sold our house in Ellicott City and we moved to Baltimore City, I had in my mind as I prayed that one day I would love to be a part of the Board of School Commissioners for Baltimore City Public Schools. So today, I have come into the kingdom, no, into the school district for such a time as this. And I thank you all so very much for your time.
We thank you so much, Dr. Wortham, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. To our community panel members, thank you all so much for your time this evening as well. As mentioned, these videos are being recorded, so I will share this recording with you all as soon as I'm able to download it so that you can, if you want to rewatch any parts of it, to do your assessments and also to share with the rest of our panel members who were not able to join. I thank you again. Of course, you will be hearing from me over email, and I hope you all enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, and we'll see you back on Tuesday.
Take care and be safe.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.